Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Survive This Crit. This week, we have the pleasure of interviewing producer and actress Dana Mackin. As a fellow Loyola Marymount University connection, she is a force to be reckoned with. Dana has been a part of a variety of film projects as an actor, producer, and even a writer, including Quarantine the Musical, and most recently, Dana has graced the screen as lead actress and producer in the indie thriller film Laced. So, welcome, Dana.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to chat with you.
So excited to be chatting with you.
Yeah,
What was
I'm
it?
I'm still obsessed with your artsy deco in the background. It's really super cute.
Thank you.
Yep.
My this new apartment is made in the 30s, and so all of the walls like have bricks immediately behind them, so I can't hang up anything. I've like
Oh
really gotten
no.
into leaning art up against things because I had all this art and I literally can't drill it into the wall.
At
Yeah.
least you don't have to patch things up. I mean, Nick doesn't
Yeah.
know this because he's a homeowner, unlike us living in
Uh-huh.
LA County. But
Uh-huh.
we're having gonna have so many holes to patch. At least you don't have to worry about that because that takes forever when you move.
Girl, I just be completely redoing things. I'm like, well, what can you do? I live here.
I have to make
Kylie,
you comfortable.
I'll have you know I've patched up so many holes in my house. Okay, I've been tearing down walls in my home ever since we
That's
first
true,
moved
but
in.
you're not gonna lose a deposit if it doesn't look good enough.
Yeah,
Just
but
you're
my HOA might have something to say to me
That's
when I
true.
move.
He's had some HOA horror stories. I'd be down for a horror film about the HOA.
I
But
actually would be too. That's amazing.
I think, Dana, you and I need to collaborate after this. We'll come up with something. We'll have some
I love it.
snotty HOA vibes going. It's very
Yeah.
Fresh Off the Boat has like a whole committee of HOA ladies and it's super
Mhm.
entertaining.
Oh,
Um
and they have like a ritual they need to perform or something like that. And their whole because there's always like a strike system with HOAs. If you get three strikes, that's how they determine their next, victims.
Absolutely. Just because you like left your dirty car out in the driveway for too long.
yeah,
Or you
or
didn't
your
pull your
grass was
weeds.
over a quarter of an inch or something crazy. It's
Exactly.
Hmm
insane.
Trademark. This is our idea. Nobody take it. Nobody take it.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
back to you, Dana. So
Okay.
you are an actress and a producer in LA. So how did you
Mhm.
get started in the industry? What's been your path so far?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, you and I went to Loyola Marymount together. We were both in the theater program.
Yeah.
So, I am like a theater kid at heart, 100%. So, I mean, I've been doing theater since I was like a little tiny kid. I've always been like a real, attention seeker, and like I've always really, really loved to perform. And so I've always like been really into musicals, and like that was my original passion. And then I decided to go to Loyola Marymount for their theater program. I liked the idea that they're like the Jesuit university, so they're all about learning every element of theater, which I found
Yeah.
really exciting. And basically, as I was in Los Angeles, I started doing makeup on set for films, and I don't know, I just started to realize the experience that you get when you're making a play or making a musical, that like camaraderie, that team building, that coming together to make something and then it's done and you throw it out into the world is the same thing that happens in film. So I just started to act in film stuff, and I went to New York for a while, did some musical training there, realized I'm a really, really bad dancer, and then decided to give up on all my dreams, move to Chicago and just do makeup. And
Wow.
then I don't know, I did that for a few years and I was like, ooh, LA is calling me. So I came back to LA, and that's when I met you. And yeah, we did a short film together, and I've just kind of been following my guts, like following where my cells are pulling me to. And so
Yeah.
some short films. I've, been auditioning for years and years and doing self-tapes forever. And when the pandemic happened, I was kind of just sitting on my hands like everybody else. And me and my fellow producers and director, like we had this script and we were like, we could probably make this for like super cheap and easy. And it ended up not being cheap or easy at all, but we just kind of got filled with inspiration, and 3.5 years later it came out, and now I'm just kind of experiencing that, what it's like to have a whole movie out in the world and anybody can watch it. Anybody.
That's crazy. Wait, so I didn't realize you filmed this probably, you said 3.5 years ago. So did you film it like mid 2020 when you guys were?
We filmed it, oh gosh, hold on, let me think. No, we filmed it April and May of 2021.
Okay, so that
Mm.
was, dang, that was still in the middle of it though. And you did Quarantine the musical early on too, which
Yeah.
that was it the same group of people primarily? Because I recognized a couple of the actors from Laced in
Yeah.
Quarantine the musical.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kyle is the director of Laced and a really good friend of mine. And Sam is the director of photography for Laced. He's an incredible DP, and he was in Quarantine the Musical. Quarantine the Musical was literally, I mean, very, very similarly, like just people who like to make films, like just kind of came together and did something silly.
It's
Mike
so
Overton.
good though. It is a time capsule of 2020, if anything. Like it is the perfect time capsule of what we all were experiencing.
Yeah.
Everything from the government subsidy checks to like running out of toilet paper. It was just so, I forget, like it aged so well.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
No, I love that one. I love that it's, I love that it's a musical, right? Kyle, he took all of this like what's it called? Like copyright free music and just like started like just put things around it for it. And Mike edited that short film, and he just did such an amazing job with the editing as well, which added another layer. Yeah, that one was like literally zero budget, just people messing around, and it came out so fun. So fun.
And now for a brief intermission, a clip from Quarantine the musical.
So you wanna come and join my team? Then you agree to keep this house extra clean. You want the wet wipes and the triple ply. Well, then you're gonna have to play by the rules of this guy.
And it looked impressive, honestly. I could tell, like, okay, like obviously this is like a self project, whatnot. But I was looking, I was like, but the lighting on this, ooh, and the angles, the whole conclusive story, and obviously the singing was amazing too. I like the costume, the little costumes, yeah, going on.
Yeah.
It was definitely more than what I was expecting.
It was really silly.
I mean, everyone had that quarantine hobby, and you guys were like, we're actually going to do something with it and like submit it out to the world. We're not just going to crochet at home by ourselves. And I'm saying that because I also was one of those people who did that. I was like, every hobby, let me just learn it really quick. Right. I got good at hobbies that I don't do anymore.
It was, oh yeah, no, I was like so into yoga. Like I like haven't done yoga.
Same.
But I was like yogaing so hard during the pandemic. I was like, I'm a yoga girl now. I think that it's really interesting. Like any reaction to like what we went through is reasonable. Like there are people who are like, yeah, I just like didn't do anything and like sat underneath a blanket and crocheted and rewatched The Office. And I'm like, freaking fair. Like that is insanely fair to do that. Like it was a horrifying, traumatic time for everybody involved. But yeah, no, I think that like when you're stuck in a room with a bunch of like weird hyper creatives, like good things can happen a lot of the time.
Even the place that you guys filmed in, I was like, it's beautiful. Like everything you guys put into it. Like the House of Hyper Creatives, your guys, like your hive mind got together and created something really cool. And that's a reminder to our listeners to make sure to watch it. I'll link the video below because it was so much fun to watch. And I think I saw it initially when it first came out because you probably posted it on Instagram.
Yeah.
But it was just so much fun. And it's led you guys to have this teamwork to create a whole feature, which we'll get into in a little bit. But I wanted to ask you, being an artist in this industry, like you said, it's really tough and there's so much that's constantly changing. So what would you say is one of the greatest values you've gained as an artist by being in this industry?
Oh man, I mean, I think that the one that immediately comes to mind is like an insane capacity for rejection. like, I think that being in this industry, especially as an actor, is just, it's 100 no's to one yes if you're lucky, if you're succeeding, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that for me, I am constantly experiencing my own ego and interacting with my own ego. I think being a filmmaker, like, you really have to fight for your own value, especially
Mm.
because this I mean, it's getting less expensive in certain ways because so many people have access to cameras and sound equipment, and in a lot of ways that's evening the playing field. But for the most part, like, as actors and directors and writers, you have to ask for permission and ask for money to make your art. And
Yeah.
there's a level of that. If you are a dancer, you can dance. If you are a guitar player, you just need a guitar. But if you're a filmmaker or an actor, like, you need a whole team. And I think that there's a lot of vulnerability in that, and there's a lot of rejection in it as well. I mean, in terms of the way things have changed, I don't know. It's like every minute I feel like our industry, especially with all the strikes that have been going on, it's just been
Yeah.
really, I never quite know what the heck is going on.
I mean, yeah, like 4 years ago, we totally changed by having like everything done virtually.
Yeah.
And then we're still constantly adapting. It's fascinating. Would you
It is.
say then that rejection, even though it's been something that you have gained as a value of getting used to, do you think that's probably been one of the greatest challenges as an actor?
100%. Yeah. I think that and I'm assuming maybe you a little bit as well, just because I know you a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
I have this, like, interest in perfectionism. I would not say that I'm a perfectionist because that would imply that I'm good at doing things perfectly, which I'm not. But I, was like a really good student growing up, and I have this insane fear of being bad at things. Like, I tend to turn away from things that might be cringe or might be scary, or somebody might say I did a bad job, right?
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
mean, that is, it's paralyzing as an artist. If you're
Yeah.
afraid of doing a bad job, you're not gonna make something good. And I mean, we were chatting a little bit before we started recording. Like, I have this tendency to shut down an idea before I even do it. So I've been trying really hard to, like, do things that I'm actively bad at that don't have
Oh, I
anything to
love
do with
that.
our industry. So I recently joined a kickball team, and I'm like the least athletic, and I am like epically, insanely bad at it, and I'm like not getting better.
The
Like,
trick is you have to kick with the laces.
listen, I've just been like trying to, like, bunt and, like, also not actively be afraid of the ball. Like, that's what I've been doing.
I mean, if you already have some of the terminology down, I think you're getting there.
Thank
And
you.
that's yeah, I mean, that's a really powerful thing to do though, because I think most people have that instinct to be like, I'm not good at it, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
did you learn that trait though, to be like, you know what, I need to step into the things that I'm actively bad at because it's going to help me grow as a person.
Yeah. I think that a huge part of it is kind of getting into, like, I've been trying to write a little bit, and I keep catching myself shutting things down and then getting, like, kind of stressed out and putting it away, right? So
Mhm.
I haven't finished it. I started doing the artist's way, which is where
I love The Artist's
yeah,
Way. I'm on week 12. I've
of
reread it three
course,
times.
right?
It's amazing.
You have to teach me how to, like, stay committed to it like that, because I always end up falling off the wagon. But the thing that I have loved about it is the morning pages and how you're supposed to just write stream of consciousness and not stop. Like, you can just write like blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And it reminds me a lot of improv. Like, I did some classes at the Groundlings, and I took an improv class in college and did some improv in high school. And it's about, like, removing that filter to protect yourself.
Ooh.
because it's messing with your own creativity. Like the filter of, oh, I don't want to sound silly, or oh, I don't want people to not like it, or whatever. It's reminds me so much of when I'm performing like improv. If that, do you
Yeah.
understand what I
No,
mean?
that totally makes
Mhm.
sense. I
Yeah.
understand that completely. That's because acting is super vulnerable. I mean, any part of artistry is really a very vulnerable thing because you're putting
Yeah.
part of yourself into what you're doing, and you have
Yeah.
to like let go of the assumption that everyone is just going to accept it. You have to let go of that.
And it's the same thing outside of the anything like artistry or creative wise. I know like with my work and everything, the second I have to bring it up for peer review, that's where things get stressful. And I think the summation of it all, you were kind of getting at there, Dana, was perfection is the enemy of progress. In that sense,
Yeah.
that's something I always try and remind myself of.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I'm just very much of the thought of like, okay, I know I want this to look perfect, but the first thing I have to do is just get it all out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
when it comes to anything I write, that's what I typically do. Um,
Yeah,
but
Nick writes our RPGs and he does an amazing job at them. But I don't think, Nick, you necessarily saw yourself as a writer before we were actively doing that for our show.
not as yeah, not for the most part. I mean, that was kind of like if I wasn't going to be an engineer, that's what I probably would have been, is a writer.
That's
Because I
cool. I
always kind
just
of
learned
thought
something
about
new
that,
about
like
you.
telling stories. I just like the idea of telling stories. That's probably part of the reason why I enjoy film so much, why I'm a film fanatic, you know. I'm
Yeah.
always looking at a movie, I'm like, okay, does the plot make sense? And I'm like, I'm trying to pick at it a little bit. I'm like, I don't know. What are the themes? What are the messages? You
Well,
know,
I'm kind
that
of obsessed with the fact that you have a film podcast and you're an engineer. Like I like that a lot. I like that it's not just a bunch of like it's all just filmmakers who make these film podcasts. I think it's cool that like you
Mhm.
have like that type of perspective. I'm sure it brings a lot of different things.
Yeah,
Yes.
Nick has a completely different perspective sometimes, and I think that's a huge gift. I think
Mhm.
Yeah.
that I'm I wanted to circle us back to you, Dana, for a minute. Some of the challenges you faced as a producer, those have to be totally different because it's less about the creativity, but it's more analytical. What is something
Yeah.
that you've been challenged with as a producer?
I mean, producing is just like uh, fighting fires. Like it's just like constantly like really stressful bad things are happening and you have to just like not let it stop you. And I have found like producing Laced, like once I got past the initial fear of like, oh my god, like maybe we've bitten off way more than we can chew, and this all of a sudden there's a lot of money and I don't know, like people gave us this to make a movie, like what's happening? I'm like, they trusted us with this. I think that it was all in like at some point the ball is rolling, it's happening, like the dates are set, the tickets out to film in Colorado are purchased and we are doing it, so we have to find a resolution, like one thing that we had to do because this was in 2021, like we had hired Hermione and Zach who play the other leads besides Kyle and I, and then we also had found actors in Colorado who were like if we needed to bring them in because something happened in the travel between Los Angeles and Colorado,
Oh,
like if
yeah.
somebody got sick, like somebody gets sick, we had to like have somebody come in instead, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, we really, really wanted to do it in a safe way because COVID was still a huge, huge part of what was happening, right? It was still very, very scary. And so we essentially all stayed in the cabin that it was filmed at, right? So
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
yeah, so Laced was filmed on one floor of this cabin, and then the basement housed all of the cast and crew. So basically,
Whoa.
we were there for like 3 weeks, and we just never left.
Guys ever have like a stressful roommate situation going on? You know? Sounds like you were getting
Um,
to know each other a little bit better than, most other cast members do in that regard.
Totally, totally. I mean, all of the cast members, like got their own room, just because like we wanted to give them the ability to rehearse, you know, and have that time to process, because it was a very emotionally intense film, obviously,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
that all the time.
especially for you, and I mean, every single character has like an extreme like emotional peak that they reach while
Yeah,
filming. How big was the
absolutely.
crew for
So
something like
Mm.
that?
I think the most people we had, including cast, was 18 people. So it was very much a skeleton crew. It was a really small group of people. And I think, you know, so okay, for example, something that happened during filming was we were trying to do day for night, because we didn't want to like just turn into complete vampires. And
Yeah.
so basically they put up tarps over the entire house, and like nailed down tarps like to the top, to the roof and to the ground, so it would like look dark. But we were in the middle of nowhere, like in the mountains of Colorado in springtime, so storms started happening, and it was like filling up the tarps as like sails and like lifting the house off of its foundation, essentially. Like there was just insane wind. So
Oh
partially
my
through
gosh.
filming, we had to make the decision to stop doing day for night and start doing night for night, which was a tough transition, right? Like we kind of had to waste some time because we wanted to like give people time to sleep. And that was like a half day or a day of filming that was kind of messed up, which was
Yeah.
scary. And, you know, during pre-production, even we were originally planning on shooting in March. We had started pre-production in January, and halfway through February, I basically like looked at the stuff we needed to do, and looked at the budget, and had to bring Kyle and Matt, our other producer, together and be like, this isn't gonna work. We need more time. So, you know, we had to just completely push our timeline back, which was scary. there's just
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into it, and that's just pre-production. And production, post-production is like a entire other journey.
Well, in post-production, oftentimes like scenes get cut. Is there anything that you were in that you were like, man, I wish audiences could have seen that part of my character development or something like that? Was there anything that you
Sure.
would have wanted to keep but couldn't for sake of time?
You know, there wasn't really. I would say that being in the editing room as an actor can,
Hmm.
it's hard to turn off like as an actor and turn on as a producer, because, you know, we'd have 5 takes of one scene, and all of all of the takes would be like the focus would be soft except for one. But
Yeah.
I felt my acting was so much better in another one, right? And so I would be like, well, I want to do the third take. And then, you know, Kyle and Matt would be like, no, Dana, like the focus is soft in that one. These 2 takes are barely any different. Like, and I'm like, no, my acting is. And so I had to like, it was really challenging for me to be like, okay, I have to trust that the acting is just fine in this take if they're gonna use
Yeah.
it, right? So it was more on like a tiny, like in these very specific, like certain takes, I really wish we had chosen a different one, or things like that. So that was quite an exercise in like, I don't
Patience.
know. Yeah, and
Mm.
patience.
I guess not even patience, like letting go,
Yeah.
surrender.
Yeah, surrender is the word for sure. And also like that circles back to, yeah, my own ego. Like I had to think about the film as a whole, as
Yeah.
opposed to like what best served me as an actor and as an artist, you know. So it was a good thing to learn, and I grew a lot doing that. We did cut a huge scene that we shot for like 2 days. We cut the whole thing, and it was this interaction between Charlie and Molly, where they like play a game that night.
Uh-huh.
It's like they play like a drinking game, and there's kind of like a romantic, like an authentically romantic moment between them. And we went back and forth for a long time about whether or not to keep that, because isolated, that scene was really special. It was
Yeah.
really it was really cool to watch, and the acting was really special, and the relationship between them was really interesting. But when we put it in the film, we were already feeling like there was concern that sympathy for Charlie was a little too high. And then when you incorporated this very intimate and authentic moment between the two of them, which if people haven't seen the movie, they won't know about this, but essentially like it leaned a little bit too much in Charlie's favor, and it would make Molly as the protagonist just like even worse.
Yeah, it would change her how audiences saw her, which is
exactly.
Wow. That's
Well, that's one thing I
fascinating.
actually really liked about the movie was the way it kind of like shifts who I was in favor of the whole time. So yeah, so I remember like at the beginning just being like, okay, like I can see what's going on here. Clearly the husband seems to he was either abusive or cheating or something. And then
Mhm.
you know, you go through this whole journey of like, okay, well, I don't like this guy. He's kind of a dirtbag. But then you kind of see like, oh no, they had something special. Wait, there's
Yeah.
something interesting going on here. It's like there's so many elements at play with the relationships. I thought it was really cool, and I thought it was very well thought out to explain like relationships aren't always so cut and dry, black and white. You know,
Yeah,
there are good things and bad things about them.
Yeah, I
absolutely.
loved the pattern of falling into like the same type of relationship too. Because like,
I know. I'm like, come on, girl.
come on, Molly, think
Come on,
better.
girl. Yeah,
But
exactly.
for everyone who hasn't seen Laced yet, like Dana said, it is available for streaming on Amazon, on Apple, pretty much wherever you can rent
It's
a
on
movie, it's there.
it's on Tubi for free now, officially, as of
Ooh,
Congratulations. Tubi is
thank you. Yeah.
making the like Tubi is getting up there.
Yeah. So you can stream it on Tubi and stream it, 6 or 7 or 8 times a day if you want.
I might just.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
so
maybe.
this acting role for you was a very intense role. So how did you mentally prepare for that as an actor? Because it's hard not at times not to get in your own head for very dark roles.
Yeah. Oh man. You know, it was really challenging, and I definitely I'm proud of my ability to get there in a lot of these scenes, but I will say that it was hard. I there were moments where I really had to maintain sympathy for my own character, and I had to stop judging her, because there were so many moments where I was like, "Oh my God, like don't be dumb," right? But
Yeah.
I was imparting I that's the worst thing you can do, is judge your own character. So I really had to find like a deep connection with her, and yeah, I think that there were days where really putting myself in her shoes felt empowering, and like I felt grateful, and I felt connected to her. And then if I'm being honest, there were certain days where I was like, I don't want to. Like I don't want to go into this mindset. I don't want
Yeah.
to experience this anxiety. I don't want to experience this pain. And I think that is something interesting, like as an actor, like, do you source from your own life, and do you engage with that and interact with that, or do you try to just experience it in your body, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of played with a lot of that. I think the the heaviness, the way I was able to get through it in a way that like felt really authentic and good, was that I just became really close with all of the actors. Like all of us, like I said, we were all living in the same place. And especially like my friendship with Zach Tinker, the guy who played Austin, my brother, like,
I love the chemistry between you two. Like,
well,
especially when you two fought, I was like,
yeah,
chills.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he was never afraid to like take huge risks, and I learned so much from him that way. Like he showed up very authentically and like with so much energy that it always inspired me to do the same.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of rehearsal as well. So I think the way to access those emotions for me was just like feeling safe, and when I felt safe, then I could kind of crack things open and do it. Also,
Yeah.
though, there were times that I just started crying because I was so tired and so stressed out during production that I was just
Oh,
like, I just started thinking about how hard it all was, and I just like that's how I cried in the scene. It's
Oh my
like I was
gosh.
just like, this has been really hard, and I'm tired. And I'm just crying.
Well, your job never stopped.
You have to have a lot of vulnerability on set, it sounds like. And I mean, between starting to film at nights, being in a cramped space, I mean, literally, this is what cabin fever to an extent.
Yeah,
um, they're
exactly.
going through. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you had like a lot of mental pressures going on, even trying to adapt or was it connect with this character. So what were
Mhm.
some boundaries that you tried to make to help preserve some of your at least your mental health in that regard?
I love that question. I think that for me, I'm really grateful that pretty much as soon as we got on set, Matt, our producer, and Kyle, the director, understood that there was going to be a lot of emotional labor happening with this role, and they made a very concerted effort to not ask me to get involved with logistics. Um,
Oh,
as soon as
nice.
as soon as shooting was over, I was back in producer mode. And before we walked into the cabin, I was in producer mode. But in those couple of weeks where we were shooting, we had all agreed that like I was an actor. I
Yeah.
was talent while
You
we
were
were on
call
set.
time as an actor, not as a producer.
Yeah, exactly, which I'm insanely grateful for. The other thing, I definitely had a few moments where I was being asked to like have like really intense emotional reactions, and then like there would be like a lighting issue. And like so I at one point I was like, I am gonna, and like they'd be like, okay, Dana, just like stay in this place for 15 minutes while we fix this lighting issue. And I definitely had like not my best moment at one point on set where I was like, I've been crying for 15 minutes. Like, can we please do the shot? So there were certain things where I was like, I'm gonna have to do this in a variety. Like I can be crying in one of them, like the script asks for, but in another, like I might be angry instead. And like we just have to kind of like I personally have to be okay with like the fluidity of that, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mhm.
Also, just going outside once a day was really important for me to go outside and feel the sun on my face.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
that
it's
tends to help.
spring, even though it was winter when you guys filmed. So I was curious about that because initially I was like, do they all get a cabin in the dead of winter and live together? Like that's a horror movie in its own right there.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. No, we were just insanely lucky that final shot, like where she's driving through the snow, that happened in May.
Oh my
Oh
It,
my,
gosh.
yeah, sometimes that happens in Colorado. It snows in the winter time. And like we had thought, like, are we gonna have to get a snow machine? Are we gonna try and do this in post? Are we just not gonna include the shot at all? And then
Yeah.
like the first week of filming, we got word that there was gonna be snow the next morning. And so Sam, the DP, and Kyle and Hermione, who played Victoria, and a few other people, they just woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and did that shot and went back to sleep, which was so, so cool.
That shot turned out great. It was very eerie. As I was watching it, I was like, I feel like there's something gonna like jump out at me at the end because it definitely leaves this feeling of eeriness. And for those of you who have not seen it, that's your reminder to go see it because it really is just like every layer that unfolds is interesting. You dive so deep into the relationships of these characters, and it really reflects on the chemistry you all had. Because, like you said, you all were pretty good friends throughout the filming process, right? I mean, other
Yeah.
than having to live together for 3 weeks, which is bound to create general tension. But
You know, I mean, the thing, and you know this, like the thing about acting with people is like it creates like an immediate sense of intimacy and friendship, right? Like if you're doing
yeah,
it right. So for me, it was hard, but in a lot of ways, like I feel so bonded to them in a way that I'm so grateful for. Like when I think about Zach and Hermione, like, who are people I hadn't met until the day we stepped onto set. Like, it's crazy that I feel so close to them.
Yeah, and they also created such a bond with you guys and the chemistry that was shown. But you guys, so as a producer, you guys got put into film festivals. You at least submitted and were accepted to a few so far. And what was that like? Waiting to hear like, oh my gosh, am I going to be a part of this festival? And what was it like seeing an audience watch your film?
Oh my gosh, the festival experience was so interesting. I never done that before. You know, a lot of people, you know, on our team had submitted short films for festivals, but this was very much my first experience with the whole festival run. And it was really interesting. I have to say that, I don't know, I'm so grateful for every single one that we went to and like all the cool people we got to meet. And I, the first time that it really hit me that we had like made a movie and we finished it and we did it was at the Phoenix Film Festival. It wasn't the first time it was ever on the big screen. Like, it was the first time it was ever on the big screen, but I was so horrifically nervous that I just like completely disassociated and blacked out like during the actual premiere. But it played once a day for the rest of the weekend in like this big huge movie theater in Phoenix. And there was one time where we walked in because we were going to do a Q&A after, and we were like 10 or 15 minutes out from the movie being over, and a really intense moment happens, and I was off to the side of the theater, so I didn't know how many people were in the movie theater, and I expected it to not be a lot. And when this really intense moment in the movie happens, I hear like 100 people go like, you know, like I heard this reaction from the audience, and I didn't know that there were so many people in the seats, and like to hear a bunch of strangers have an emotional response to something we made, I freaked out. Like, I started like grabbing like my friend's arms. Like, I was like, oh my God, like we made a movie. They were like, yeah. So that was huge. And, you know, Phoenix Film Festival was cool because so many people from that community who aren't filmmakers are just excited to go. And so that was like a very much general audience. And then Panic Fest in Kansas City, that one was like just all filmmakers. So it was like a completely different audience that also had so many good reactions.
Wow.
Yeah.
That, I mean, even the difference between a traditional audience and a filmmaker audience, you just get such different results from both in a good way. Like, you learn different reactions and different relationships from the people that you meet at those.
Yeah. It was really cool.
So when you were sitting there, you know, seeing that film on the big screen, hearing everyone's reactions, would you say was that like the like your aha moment of like, oh, I've done something amazing, or did that come later on for you? Like, when did it really just all hit you?
I mean, I think that we worked really hard, and there were a lot of moments where I felt like this was dumb, like we shouldn't have done this, like it's too hard. If I'm being honest, like there were plenty of moments where I was like, this was a mistake, right? I don't think we're going to be able to finish it. I don't think we're going to be able to do it. And then the moment where I was so proud of myself, and I was so proud of our team, and I was like, you know, even if this is as far as this goes, is the Phoenix Film Festival, like, look at what we learned and look at what we were able to do with just like sheer force of will, and also all of the people who helped us so much, of course. But yeah, no, that's when I had a moment of real pride for sure.
You definitely should. You should feel very proud for this movie. It was very good.
Thanks. Thanks.
What would you say before we transition into some rapid fire questions was the greatest thing that you learned either as an actor or a producer while making Laced? Or both, because those are two very different roles.
Yeah. What's the greatest thing I learned? That's a big question. Give me a second. It's kind of corny, but just start and don't stop. Like, just start. If you believe in yourself and you believe in the thing that you're making, just start it. Stop like listing all of the reasons you can't and listing all the reasons it's not fair and all of the reasons that like it wouldn't work or it's too silly or it's too embarrassing or whatever. Like just start and move with confidence, and just like if you keep going, you can do a lot. You know? And I think that is very applicable as a producer and also as an actor, that like if you can really will something into existence, you can make it happen. Because there's just no way that I thought that I would be able to make a film in my 20s, especially with the level of experience that I had. And of course, Matt and Kyle like both brought so much to our production team, and they had more filmmaking experience than I did, but it was amazing to just like learn in real time and not let fear hold me back. Oh, it's so lame. It's so lame.
No, it's not lame. It makes sense though, because it's a real thing. Like fear oftentimes is what holds most people back. Is that the advice you'd give to somebody who wants to enter this industry, as competitive and as draining as it is?
Yeah, absolutely. And also like don't let it be competitive, like only compete with yourself, I think is the other huge piece of advice. Like just keep your eyes on your own paper and don't worry about what other people are doing or like how big and exciting it looks like it is on Instagram, because most of the time it's not. And just like stay focused on what it is that you want to do and move forward with confidence, because like you have a right to make your art. Like you don't have to earn the right to make your own art. Like if you're an artist, you have the right to do it. I feel very strongly about that. And it doesn't matter how many like followers you have on TikTok, you know, like to do it. Oh man, the followers. It's a
totally different age because of that. Entirely because of how many people follow a particular something online determines its value, which is intrinsically not accurate most of the time, because there's just but it's good marketing. So it's one of those things, which marketing leads me into Jennifer's Body. When you were like, this was my favorites, I was like, yes, I've been wanting to watch this. And they butchered marketing, which we talked about on our deep dive for those of you who have not listened to that yet. But when it comes to Jennifer's Body, what do you think about that film and the feminist lens that it takes? It's a film about women for women. And what is it that draws you in?
Oh my God. First of all, like, I just think that it's just like the most like scrumptious movie. Like I like am obsessed with like the early 2000s energy of it. And also like the fact that the plot is like so like step 1, step 2, step 3. Like it's like very much a whole journey. And just very satisfying to watch, in my opinion, as a whole. I think that there's so many ways that you can interact with that movie in a feminist lens. Like you could make this suggestion that like it's demonizing female sexuality, and it's like suggesting that women are in the pursuit of consuming men and harming them, and like powerful women are harmful. Or you could look at it as like, women using the power they have over men in a way that was traditionally harmful, in a way that is self-serving, which is positive, right? I think you could witness that movie. There's 100 different arguments in either direction. I'm of course curious what you think as well, but at the end of the day, like I just am obsessed with the set design.
The aesthetic is so cute.
Acting, and it is so cute. And does it feel like Mean Girls to you? It feels
like probably because of Amanda Seyfried in it.
It is me. It's like Mean Girls, but meaner and more realistic. Because growing up as theater kids, some of us got bullied in middle school and in high school, and that's kind of a reality. But like it feels real for growing up in the early 2000s. Like
Yeah.
Popular kids would say the wildest things that like could go onto
Yeah.
this script. And it's
Yeah.
beautiful
No,
that way.
I love it. And I also like, I really like this kind of like exploration between like their friendship and like whether or not it is romantic or just a close friendship and like kind of like what that looks like. And, do they have romantic feelings for each other, or is like Jennifer just trying to like,
Or is she just possessed?
Yeah.
well, or is she like trying to like manipulate her friend in the same way that she has often manipulated men? And like, does that work in a female friendship? I think it's just like I said, it's just a delicious movie.
And it's aged pretty well, honestly. It's considering it came out in the early 2000s, it's only gotten better with time so far.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of those that's interesting that way.
Absolutely. And, some of the stuff that Jennifer says is like insanely problematic, but also like she's a problematic character. So you're kind of like, okay, well, what can you do?
Yeah.
I feel like there's so many problematic things that all the characters say, not just like maybe not thinking problematic is the right word, but definitely cringe. There's a lot of cringe things that people say.
So cringe. It's
especially
amazing.
when J.K. Simmons comes up on the screen. I was not expecting that in this movie. Just like with his like wig, he's got his hook on. I was like, he really just they had like a whole supply closet of costume props. They said, hey, just make a character.
Where all the props.
Yeah, the hook is so random. I love it.
It's so campy, but in the best way.
So here's an interesting question on the topic of Jennifer's body. Which character would you say is your favorite? Like, who do you gravitate towards the most in terms of cheering for?
Jennifer, right? I mean,
I'm fist pumping in the background for our audio listeners.
I mean, I think that Megan Fox in that movie is just freaking dynamite. Like, I just think her acting is amazing. I think it's like original bimbo culture, like to have this juxtaposition between her saying stuff like, you're just jelly, like you're just jello chip, and then she's like viciously murdering someone. Like I'm to me, like that, like you said, it's just so campy, and she's just, she's smoking hot in it, and she's like so vicious,
and she knows it.
And I really do think that like the acting in it is so good because she's like so bimbo on the surface, but you see, like, once she gets possessed, like, you see real, like, evil darkness lurking underneath in a way that, as you're mentioning before, like, feels familiar. Like, high school, like, people get dark, and, like, they say things that are, like, surface level, like, shouldn't be that hurtful and shouldn't be that painful, but, like, you look in their eyes and you're like, whoa, is this person gonna harm me? Like, I don't know that I was rooting for her is not the right word, because she's murdering people and that's bad. But when I'm watching the movie, like, do I have like this, am I drawn to her? Am I like, oh my God, she's just killing it in this role? Yes, 100%. Yeah.
It's crazy that she got nominated for a Razzie for this role. It makes me so violently angry.
Yeah. I think that in that way, it's almost like aged like fine wine, because we are having this moment with like bimbo culture, Barbie culture, like Paris Hilton kind of like coming out of the intellectual,
like a feminine culture coming back into like all spaces, like horror, even reality with Paris Hilton show. It's like everyone is a little bit more okay with that than they were maybe 5 years ago.
Well, and also presenting like hyper feminine and saying and talking like a valley girl and saying things like that doesn't make you any less intellectually.
No, like Megan, her character is very smart and very calculating.
She sounds like such a dum-dum the whole time, and she's super smart and super calculating, which I do think is an exciting thing to explore.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to dive into some rapid fire questions in relation. We're going to circle back to Jennifer's body a little bit, but I'm curious, do you have You listed a few favorite horror movies, but what are your favorite horror movies? If you have like one solid favorite, what would it be?
Yeah, I think that probably, like I said, Jennifer's Body is really far up there. I also really love the movie. You guys are going to notice a theme here. I also love the movie Raw, the French movie about
Oh, I've never seen it.
she goes to veterinarian school and she's been a vegetarian her whole life. And then there is basically she gets, oh gosh, what's the word? She gets, like when you're in a sorority and you get hazed. She gets
Hazed.
and gets forced to eat the liver of a rabbit, I think, and then immediately turns into a cannibal. And like you discover all this crazy stuff about her family. And it's just like a really dark, gnarly French movie.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so much fun.
I love The Invitation, which the 2015 one, not the 2022 one, which
Same
is
director as Jennifer's Body, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that one because it's on the edge of a thriller, and I love the Babadook because it like made me cry like multiple times. It was like so terrifying. So I will not be watching it again because it's too scary.
It was like the one and done.
I think I've successfully repressed the Babadook out of my mind because I remember watching it once and I cannot remember anything about it for the life of me.
I'm a Babadook virgin. I've not seen it. So if we should watch it for this show, I think our audiences need to let me know because I would be very scared probably seeing it. I've heard a lot about it, and that's why I haven't seen it. Because I know it would scare me.
It's like very much playing on like the whole kid's imagination and imaginary friend, like, God, I can't.
It's already scary enough when kids are like, I'm playing with Elfie, and you're like, there's no one there, my friend.
Yeah, if you've been a nanny, you've witnessed some weird stuff like that, which I have, and I have.
Yeah. Well, what was the first horror movie that you remember seeing? What inducted you into this genre?
Signs. I was like 7 years old. I was at a big family reunion and somebody turned it on the TV in the middle of the afternoon and I sat down in front of it and I did not sleep in my own bed for like 4 years after that. I was entirely convinced that I was going to get abducted by aliens. It was like I remember I started having panic attacks after that. Like it affected me in like a legitimately traumatizing way.
Oh my gosh.
I, in general, guys, I'm a huge scaredy cat. I'm afraid of the dark. I'm terrified to walk alone at night. Like
That's for valid reason though. We both live in LA. That's fair.
Yeah, I'm a paranoid person. So it's been really interesting, like discovering this interest in horror films and like being a part, like starting to engage in this genre in such an intense way.
It probably helps with your acting though, because it helps you be more authentic because there's probably aspects of it that are genuinely scary to you while you're filming.
Yeah, and I also have an active imagination and a gullible brain, which is good as an actor to let yourself be gullible and put yourself in those situations.
Yeah. Well, so do you have a least favorite horror movie or trope? Because there are some tropes out there that have not aged well, but I'm curious if you have a particular movie or trope that you're like, I cannot handle this every time it comes on.
Oh man. I mean, I don't really. I guess I'd have to think about it a little bit, but no, I just have like a real issue with skin. Like I can't watch anything where like skin is coming off or just actually no wait no I haven't I have a real answer to this. I don't like torture porn. Like I don't like Saw and movies like that, like stuff where it's just like incredibly graphic just for the purposes of being graphic and like buckets of blood and organs and things like that. And I can completely respect it as a part of the genre. And I know that some people really genuinely enjoy those movies, but for me, like I'm a very plot driven person. And like once it starts just getting into like detailed expressions of like the fact that we're just sacks of meat, I really don't like that.
I understand what you're saying there. I get it.
Yeah, I'm not into that personally.
No, that's completely fair. I feel like there's some seasons of maybe like American Horror Story that have taken that route in the last few years. That it used to be very plot driven, and they've kind of been like pain. I haven't seen the last couple because I kind of fell off the plot after that, but
no, and like I said, some people like it, and I think that's okay. I'm definitely not like shaming the fascination with it, but yeah, for me personally, I just start to get nauseous. I just start to be like,
like, sorry, I need to step out of the room for a minute. Let me
exactly.
take a breather.
Yeah, exactly.
When you are in a situation of confrontation, as you have been as a producer, an actor, probably many times, are you a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? And there is a follow-up to this.
Ooh, it depends on who I'm talking to.
Do you have a general instinctual, like if you're in an alley and there's like somebody coming at you, what is generally your...
No, better yet. Let's just ask this. You're facing Jennifer herself.
Yes, there you go. That's the follow-up. You're facing Jennifer, succubus Jennifer, a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fawn?
Probably a fawner. Yeah, I think just in general, I am probably a fawner, which I don't like is not.
I think you're our first like one that's actually admitted it, because I think there's been probably others and they never say it. So you know yourself well enough that you're like, I know how I'm going to use this tactic to my advantage. How would you use it to your advantage though?
I don't think that's like that's a cool answer. Like you're supposed to be like, fight, I'm a fighter. But and I think fawning is a way of fighting in such a way that like you can ask yourself like, okay, how am I going to get out of this situation better than where I was before in any conflict, right? And I think, to put it in a more positive light, like everybody's human, everybody has like the same basic desires. So if you can make someone feel safe and admired, oftentimes it's easier to come to a resolution. And I think, that could be perceived as manipulative, but I also just think that it's like basic communication skills. But yeah, if I interacted with Jennifer from Jennifer's body, I think that I wouldn't have to try to fawn. I think I would just immediately be like, oh my God, you're so hot. You're so cool.
You should keep me around,
let me be your groupie.
You're like, oh my God, freaking icon.
She rips open a boy and you're like, yes.
I'm like, you're killing it. You're doing an amazing job.
You're killing him, but you know what? You're killing him.
You're killing him right now. I'm like, yes, queen, get it. Yeah, no, that's I'm just Jennifer's hype woman. I'm into that. I think I could really do well in that role. Yeah.
I think you would benefit too, because like as she admits in the movie, she has control of like the police force because she's with the cadet, and she has like a lot of power. Even though in the movie, she kind of loses autonomy over her body throughout the movie. Yeah. But initially, early on, she has a lot of power. And if you are fawning over her, then you also have power by association. So I think that's a smart tactic. Thank you. Nick, that's something to keep in mind as we do our RPG episode.
What, fawn?
Fawn may be a good tactic. Just saying.
Now that you said it, I absolutely refuse.
I guess we'll see. But Dana, as we're wrapping up, what are you working on, and where can we keep up with you?
Yeah, I mean, you can keep up with me on Instagram at Dana Mac. I'm working at a YouTube channel right now. I'm working at the React channel, so you might see me a little bit here and there. And I don't know, I'm very lightly starting to write a musical, I think. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. We'll have to see, but right now I'm auditioning, I'm writing a little bit, I'm playing kickball. I'm kind of regathering my strength to start putting something else out. So we'll have to see, bro.
Yeah, everyone needs to follow Dana so they can watch her journey as she enters this new chapter of after, because I mean you worked for 3.5 years on Laced, so now you're like figuring out, what do I do next?
What's next? Probably not something scary. Probably not. I'm probably gonna try and do something
unless
funny.
It's a Jennifer's Body sequel.
Exactly.
Like, I'll be the hype woman. Cast me today.
Cast. Yes. You guys can follow me by casting me in whatever.
100%. Dana is a pleasure to be with on set. We've had a lot of fun acting on set together. And I definitely, if I can find a clip of us, I will include it in this episode somewhere, just so people can see us from 4 years ago.
And now, a clip from the project Dana and Kylie worked on together.
She's great. How's your sister?
Failing calculus.
Oh no! She should get a tutor.
Wow, they really hate each other.
This is Battle of the Books, honey bun. Not amateur hour.
Well, Nick, do you have any other questions you want to ask?
I guess not at this time, but I do just, I guess I'll finish this out real quick. And I just want to say again, loved your movie Laced. I definitely remember Kylie she showed me a reel about it. I was interested. I was like, okay, this looks intriguing. Gave it a look. Immediately texted her. I was like, Kylie, we got to get Dana on the show. This is amazing. We got to do a whole series on this.
That's so cool. Guys, thank you so much for having me on and for talking to me about the whole process, and also just for getting the word out about the film. I feel proud of it, and also I really appreciate all of the good conversation.
Yeah. Oh
thank you for being on the show. Thank you for all of our listeners. Thank you again, Dana, for being on the show. Make sure to follow her at Dana Mac. Check out her movie Laced. Check out Quarantine on YouTube. That's a fun little musical. And be sure to follow and like our show, everybody. Thank you all for listening. Bye.
Bye, everybody.